Hello folks, you're looking at the components of my next project. It has been said by a very wise man, happy wife, happy life. If a long-term emergency does occur, in addition to having water, I imagine my wife will want hot water for cleaning, laundry, and most importantly bathing. Who am I kidding? I want hot water too. These are the components that I think I can use to make that happen. It is based on the black hose heaters several folks have demonstrated in order to heat their pools. I'm going to attempt to replicate that, but on a much smaller scale as I only want to heat 20 gallons or so. Along the way, I'm going to try to answer 3 questions. First, does this actually get the water any warmer than sticking a black bucket out in the sun? Second, if it does work, how warm does the water actually get? And third, is any efficiency gained by putting a piece of acrylic over the tubing? So, here's what's required to MacGyver all of this together. First, I have a 2-foot by 4-foot sheet of plywood to mount everything to, and then I have some 2x2s and 1x2s to provide the framing. I have 100 feet of food-grade black tubing that I purchased on the internet for under 30 bucks. I also have a small food-grade pump that I purchased for $15 on the internet as well. The pump will be run by a couple of Goal Zero 15-watt solar panels that I already had. I then have a 20-gallon bin and numerous fittings to use as my water tank. Water barrels are a little pricey and I wanted to make sure this actually works before I purchased one. And then I have a 2-foot by 4-foot acrylic sheet to mount on top of the frame using aluminum stays. That's that large sheet of cardboard you see there. And finally, I have some black paint to aid in heat absorption. As before, I will walk you through each phase of the build so you can see how it is constructed. Hopefully we will learn some things along the way, and more importantly, hopefully everything will work. The first step was to paint the bin black to aid in heat absorption. That has been completed. The next step, we are going to add our fittings to the bin. We are going to put 2 bulkhead fittings on the side. One on the lower left to be our cold water out, and one on the upper right to be our hot water return from our black tubing. We will also place a small faucet on the side because once we've heated the water up, we will need some way of getting it out of the bin. So we'll go ahead and put those 3 fittings on now. Here's what the bucket looks like with the bulkhead fittings and spigot attached. Notice I have some plugs in place because I'm going to go put this out in the sun, fill it with water, and see how much it actually heats up. The next step is going to be to build a frame around our 2-foot by 4-foot sheet of plywood. So here's the finished box construction. You take a 2x2, cut it in half, that becomes some strengtheners on the back of the plywood. You take the other 8-foot 2x2 and you cut some 22-inch sections of it. You use those horizontally on the back. On the front, you use the 1x2s and you kind of layer them up. And then finally, you use the aluminum angle strips to attach the acrylic to the top of what will end up being your solar radiant heater box. My next step is to dry fit the black tubing because I need to find where I need to put holes to secure zip ties in order to secure the tubing in there. And I also need to know where to cut some slots in order to pass the tubing through the plywood. And then finally, I need to mount the pump to the back of the piece of plywood as well. Once I've figured all that out, I'll disassemble it and then paint it and then put it all back together. Here's the board with all of the holes drilled in order to mount the black hose. The holes will be used to run zip ties, which will secure the hose in place. The 4 holes over here on the left are for the pump mount through the back. Slot in the middle is the hose going out, and slot on the upper right hand corner is for the hose coming in, and then it will circle, pop back out. So here's the finished product. The frame has been painted a flat black. I've run 100 feet of black tubing inside of there. I came up a little bit short. You'll see on the right hand side I had to use some clear tubing. Next time I'd order 120 feet of the black tubing. The vendor that I purchased it from is seen down below in a link. Now the only thing to do is take it out, test it, and see how warm it makes the water. So here's a solar heater set out in the sun. It's been out here about 3.5 hours. As a point of reference, I set the bucket outside in the sun for about the same amount of time, from 11:30 until 3 p.m. on a day when it was 80 degrees out. The water actually heated up to 84 degrees, but only at the top of the bucket. Down towards the bottom, it was still around 76, 78 degrees. Using the solar heater here, it's actually a 90-degree day. It is somewhat cloudy, so my little pump has been going on and off based on whether the panels are getting sun. But with 89 degrees being the high, the water in the bucket is already 102 degrees after just 3 hours. And that is a temperature that is fairly consistent throughout the bucket because the water is being circulated by the pump. So from my perspective, this is a bit of a success. That would get you 20 gallons of bath water, or at least bath water temperature, all for about $100, minus the solar panels, which I already had. The black tubing was about $25 to $30 via the internet. The pump was about $15, and then I spent about $50 on lumber and paint, and then another heavy-duty tote that I painted black. One thing of note is the storage bin kind of is getting a little bit warped from the weight of the water in it, so I'm questioning whether it would actually last long term, which would be another reason to get a dedicated water barrel to do this, albeit a smaller one. This solution isn't going to heat 100, 200 gallons of water. This was mainly just to be able to heat water up for cleaning and bathing, and would it do the job? And for a fairly low price, minus the solar panels, which is what I believe it does. So those are my thoughts. If you have any questions or suggestions, please leave them in the comments section. And as always, thank you for watching, and please subscribe.